What's up, Internet? This is the 84th Wolf, and welcome back to another episode of Wolf Watches, where today we are going back over RWBY Volume 6, Episode 3, and we are finally getting some backstory. I have been looking forward to this for so long. What is Salem? Who is she? What is her motivations? Well, I did have my own theory on it, which I think is good, but obviously it didn't pan out. Hearing the official canon version of Salem's origin story is just as good, and it fits within the themes and the canon of RWBY itself. There's just so much to cover, and I'm probably going to be missing things. I wrote as much as I could down, but there is a lot packed into this one episode. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, go watch it now, then come back, we'll talk about it later. Okay, so where we last left off, Jin is explaining the story of Salem. And it begins in the fairy tale manner of once upon a time there was a girl in a tower, kind of locked away by her family, I guess, and she was essentially trapped there. Now, we don't know her family or kind of like the backstory along this particular imprisonment, which I thought was a little bit odd. I wish there was some backstory to that of why she was locked away. But the important thing is that she's locked up there. People have been trying to get her out for, her hand in marriage or whatever, typical fairy tale stuff. And Jin explains that this is also a world where magic is common. Magic is literally a blessing from the gods, and every human could use magic. And while she's explaining this, the members of Team RWBY and Crow and Oz can actually are in the room with Salem as Jin is explaining this story, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. It's almost like they can interact with it without actually being there. So now, who appears but the knight in shining armor, Ozma? I think that's kind of funny how Ozma's name has changed over the years. Which, makes sense because it's hundreds of thousands of years old. He's not going to keep using the same name over and over again. But Ozma is kind of a cool name for a knight. I really liked it. And the knight is the knight-looking person that we saw in the intro. He looks pretty good. I really like his design. And also, just as kind of like an aside, he's not like the typical knight with the shield and sword. He actually has like a staff with this gem on it, and it's obviously, I don't know what the right word, let's just call it a precursor version of his cane. So Jin explains that Ozma was someone who wanted to right wrongs, not necessarily do it for personal gain, and he saw that Salem was trapped in her tower, and he thought this was unfair, so he went to break her out, not seeking any reward, just because it was just. Again, kind of the typical fairy tale thing. It's like, oh, this uncorrupted knight just wants to serve justice and everything like that, which only takes place during the first 5 minutes of the story, but it kind of fits with the whole fairy tale thing, and I really like that it begins that way and then kind of just gets way more serious later down the line. It's like the PG version and then the real Brothers Grimm version further down the line. And one minor thing, they have a quick picture of Ozma fighting off some of the guards in Salem's castle. It really looks like the Grimm from Weiss's short. I forget what the name is, but I'll put it right here, but it's that name. So, Ozma rescues Salem, and while they both didn't plan on it, they both fall in love, and Jin ends the story, or this chapter of the story, and they lived happily ever after, or so they thought. And this is where I feel the most for Ozpin, because while he is an indirect part, and he gets a little bit more involved later of causing Salem's fall, this is really sad and tragic. Ozma falls ill to disease and passes away. And so Salem wants to visit the gods to basically beg or demand that they bring Ozma back. And this is a world where the gods are literal, people know where they live. There's a god of light and a god of darkness. They each have their own little I guess, shrines. So you could actually go to the gods and get advice or talk to them about stuff, or in this case, Salem goes to beg for Ozma to come back. So Salem first visits the god of light. You're resurrecting the dead here. You probably want the creation god for that. Not to mention that the god of light is a hell of a lot less creepy than the god of darkness. Also, just the name God of Darkness, I think you need a better PR firm before you can go up against the God of Light. Just throwing that out there. Salem makes her case, but basically is, please bring him back. I love him a lot. Please bring him back. And light is just life and death. There is a delicate balance, and it's something that me and my brother created. We can't just break it just for you. And you, as humans, have to learn to respect life and death. So after this lesson, he teleports her back to the bottom of his mountain, and Salem just refuses to accept this. So then she goes to visit the god of darkness. Again, if you're the god of darkness and you want people to like you, you shouldn't leave freaking skeletons at your doorstep. So she goes to seek an audience with him at his shrine. What I think is kind of cool here is that Grimm already exists. They're just surrounding the darkness shrine, and at least again, it's one of those things. It's oh, I think Oz was telling the truth about this with the whole god of light and darkness. Yes, Grimm were created before humans, so it would make sense that the god of darkness would have Grimm there. So the god of darkness rises out of his pool. Again, minor note, really like it. He does the weird body bend thing that the Knuckleave do. I just thought that was a nice touch. It kind of just calls back to that. And he is very surprised to have some loyal follower come to ask him for a favor instead of going to the god of light. Salem, of course, neglects to mention that she went to see the god of light first. So he's kind of blown over by her loyalty and does what she wants. He resurrects Ozma. Unfortunately, Light kind of either sensed something or something along those lines, and he actually appears in the shrine saying, "What the hell are you doing? You can't do this. We made a deal." And Death, being kind of the little brother at the time, just "Oh, you're just jealous that, this person came to me instead of coming to you, and I was able to fulfill her wish and you didn't." Light just kind of "All right, just shut up. We'll deal with this in a minute." Just reaches out his hand and just kills Ozma. That had to suck. I can't imagine being Ozma or Salem in that situation. It's just all right, your loved one died. Here he is. He's dead again. But then it gets worse. Darkness gets really pissed at Light and revives Ozma again. I know it's not funny, but it's just kind of a juvenile thing to do. At the time, all I was thinking was this is exactly how little brothers and little cousins behave with each other. It was funny at the time. So Darkness actually turns into this dragon thing with a skull head and starts attacking Light. Light responds in kind, blows away the Grimm that attack him, and actually turns into a golden dragon. Some people have been trying to kind of connect the yellow golden dragon with Yang and Tai Yang. They're distantly related to the god of light, but I think it's just kind of a callback to the name. I really don't think there's anything to it. So then Light kind of explains, Salem actually did come to me first. She only came to you because, she wanted to get her way and she wasn't accepting of the system that you and I created. So she came to him not out of loyalty, but just out of spite and selfishness. And then Dark apologizes, which is just weird. When you think of this being of indescribable hatred, evil, and destruction, and his shrine, literally it's a pool of destruction, he's "Oh, my bad. I didn't realize this happened. I'm sorry, brother." Family ties, man, they're just super strong. So what does he do afterwards? He kills Ozma again! What the hell is going through Ozma's head at that point? I'm so sick, I'm dying. Oh my god, I'm back! Where the hell's going on? Oh, shit! Ah! Yeah! I'm back. And it's just, I just felt bad for the guy! It's like a game of whack-a-mole with his soul! So of course, Salem is a little upset and actually starts gathering magic together as if she's going to attack. And Light doesn't take this too well. He teleports her to her home and she falls falls into his shrine, which is called the Waters of Life. Having fallen into Waters of Life, she is now immortal. Light and Dark reveal that this is a punishment. Because Ozma is dead and is never coming back, she will never be allowed to die and join it. Which when you first realize that she's immortal, you're like, well, why would you give her immortality? But the fact that you can reunite with loved ones and there's something else after death because they created it, this is very, very brutal. Light does explain that once she understands the importance of life, death, and moving on, and not be selfish and make demands and stuff like that, she will be released and passed on. However, Salem just looks at this as being a prisoner again, before she met Ozma. I think at the time it's just that she doesn't understand what Light says and thinks that there's just no way to undo this. So then Jin explains that over the years, Salem tries and tries to attempt to die, and we actually see one of her attempts where she stabs herself through the chest with a sword. What began as a desperate struggle to die just became just something she did regularly out of spite, which is like really messed up. However, she does say to herself, wait, I was able to trick the gods and turn them against each other just for a moment. So they're not infallible. There is a way to get rid of them. So then she travels around the world. It doesn't specify how long this took, but she travels around the world to all different kingdoms of man, claims that she stole immortality from the gods. She says there is a way to kill them so we can get their power, we can remake the world in our own image, no one will be allowed to die, there will be no sickness, basically all of the whole let's make the world a better place because we know better. And this kind of runs back to the first lesson for Salem about how easily the hearts of man are corrupted. So Salem gathers an army to charge at Light's shrine, and the gods of light and darkness are waiting for them. So the humans, gather up there's dozens, if not a couple hundred of them, and they all fire their magic and arrows and stuff like that, and darkness just reaches out, gathers all the energy into a ball, and then crushes it and wipes out the entire planet full of life. Everything is still there, just nothing living, except for Salem. Darkness explains that this is Salem's last punishment, to walk the earth alone, by herself, forever. Light says that when they created humanity, it was like an experiment. Having seen this experiment fail, Light and Darkness decide to abandon the planet and just go do something else in the universe. While Light just kind of gradually fades away, leaving Salem to her devices, Darkness, I guess, wanted one more parting shot at her, because he just bullets up into space, crashes through the moon, how the moon became broken, and speeds off into space. Of all the things to destroy the moon, it had to be a god who was really pissed off. So the gods have abandoned the planet, and Salem is alone with no one but the Grimm for company. So she wanders the planet again, and out of desperation, she decides to do the one thing that might kill her: jump into the dark shrine, the pools of Grimm. However, infinite darkness cannot defeat infinite light, and vice versa. So she falls into the pool, she gets beat up, but she can't die. And when she crawls out of the pool, infinite darkness and infinite light have mixed together, leaching her skin and turning her into an immortal bent on destruction. She has essentially been brainwashed to want to destroy everything, amplifying her feelings of betrayal, selfishness, and spite. However, Remnant is not all lost. We cut to Ozma in kind of a purgatory place. It's just a white void, and Light appears before Ozma and kind of explains Darkness and Light have decided to leave the planet, but he's willing to give humanity one last chance to their own devices without needing the gods. He shows the relics, each with their own specific power, which aren't explained. He just says, once you collect these relics together, we will come back to judge you. Now, whether or not human is worth saving or it deserves to be wiped out completely will be decided on this judgment day. Basically, can humans live together peacefully and not demand gifts of the gods, or, basically, can they just get along? Until Judgment Day arrives, Ozma will be reincarnated every single time. And he offers this as a choice. He is not forcing Ozma to do this. Ozma is a little hesitant because he wants to pass on into the afterlife and rejoin Salem. Light reveals that Salem is actually still alive and a lot has happened. While he doesn't go into specifics of what happened, he lets him know this isn't the same woman that you left. A lot has happened. You'll only find pain if you go back. However, Ozma agrees to Light's demands. And I think this is more of one of those things that he is just so desperate to see her and he doesn't believe really that she can't be redeemed or she can't be saved or even that Light is even telling the truth. He just wants to see Salem again. So Light reincarnates Ozma, whose first host is right in the middle of a Grimm attack. He manages to fend off a few Grimm, but he is just so disorientated, basically having two minds now. It's obviously like a culture shock for him. The world looks very familiar, but at the same time there's a lot of differences. There's actually faunus in this world now. They weren't any before. And with the gods gone, no human has any magic, so they have to rely on dust. So as he's going about his life, Ozma hears about a witch in the woods, more fairy tale themes, and suspects that this could be Salem, and he goes to find her. So they do meet, they realize who each other are, and kind of just swap stories with some omissions. Ozpin doesn't reveal about the relics or why Light reincarnated him, and Salem omits kind of her part of making the world as it is today. So he's not quite motivated to do what Light asks, especially just the fact that, if Judgment Day may or may not wipe out humanity, then, why collect them in the first place? I mean, if you don't summon the gods, it's pretty much just humans' decision whether or not they live or not. But he does want humans to unite, at least just for peaceful purposes, and Salem kind of manipulates him into saying, yeah, we have these powers, we have magic. They're still able to use magic, as no one else in the world can because of the gods. But again, Salem kind of manipulates Oz's feelings of uniting humanity. Again, humans' hearts are easily swayed. So they officially kind of appear before towns, fighting off Grimm and basically creating a gigantic empire. And the thing about this empire is that it's actually good. It's prosperous, it's huge, they're revered as gods and leaders, and they even managed to have some kids. They have 4 kids, and they're all girls. Are these the maidens, or is it just huge coincidence? I do think it would be cool if they could reincarnate like Ozpin. What I really like about this potential theory, once upon a time when Oz was the old man from the Four Maidens tale, he was literally done. He had given up hope. And these 4 maidens, who are actually his 4 children reincarnated, find out about this, and they go to drive him forward again. And they've had the powers to begin with. That's what I'm thinking. But at the same time, it doesn't. I just don't know, because we don't know enough about the maidens. We've never interacted with one. I like the potential that they also are reliving their own lives, but I just don't know. So the reason why they were able to get the kingdom that they have and why they're so prosperous and stuff is that there's still a war going on. Not everyone falls in line with Salem and Oz's plan. To be perfectly fair, it makes sense. There's just so many people and so many beliefs and so many groups. It's impossible to unite the world under one banner. There's just too many differences, and there's always going to be the one asshole that ruins it, even if it's Oz and Salem. Oz brings up, I don't know if this is the right thing to do, and Salem is like, we really don't have a choice. Either really you're you're with us or you're against us. And Oz, it kind of clicks in his head that like, no, that's not what true peace is about. He's definitely struggling with the whole situation. Oz finally breaks down and reveals to Salem the reason why Light reincarnated him, the story of the 4 relics, and the whole Judgment Day plan. So with that out of the way, Salem now knows everything, and I think I know what she wants to plan, but I will get to that at the end of the video. So after explaining all this, Salem just kind of like, alright, well, we don't need the gods. We have everything that we need right here. Have a prosperous kingdom. We have children. We don't need the gods. We're powerful. We have magic. Our children have magic. We can create the world however we see fit. And that, I think, is what scares Oz the most. Basically, he doesn't see himself as a god, and it scares him that Salem thinks she is. So in the dead of night, Oz decides to try to abandon Salem and take his children with him. Unfortunately, Salem is waiting for him, and she attacks. She makes the first move, and Osmond defends himself and his family. The castle that they live in just gets destroyed. Because Salem's immortal, she can't die. So Oz loses this fight and just gets a fireball to the face for his trouble. And we don't know what happens to the children. There's no, I guess the implication is that they died, but there's no, we don't see that happening, thank God. So Jin explains then that Oz just kind of spends some lifetimes, alternating between trying to complete the task he was given and basically try to forget the whole thing and just drunk and mournful for lifetimes on end, but he always comes back to wanting to finish the task. And it's really cool because he passes his staff through the generations, so we see it as the normal staff, then he's like tinkering with it until he sees what we have for today. I think it's kind of cool. I like the fact that he hides the staff from generation to generation, just as the one memento from his old life. So he spent several lifetimes seeking the relic. So far we only know about the Relic of Knowledge. I assume all the other ones are secure, but we only see him find and use the Relic of Knowledge, basically saying, what are the powers, where are they, and how do I destroy Salem? And to that last question, Jin says, you can't. I think, again, this kind of reflects the last words of Light, that no one person can undo the curse that Salem has except for Salem herself. And at this point, she is just so consumed by hatred and vengeance that I don't even think she remembers that day anymore. So then Jin brings everyone back to the real world, and it begins to snow. So holy mother of God, that was a lot in one episode to try and break down. But pretty much my biggest questions are, what is Team RWBY's reaction? What's Crow's reaction going to be? How is Oz going to take this whole thing? How the hell is Maz going to deal with this? She's like in the middle of this group like, what the hell is happening? And one of the biggest questions, what was in RWBY's souvenir bag on the train? Oh yeah, and the whole, and time for a theory. So what I think Salem's plan is pretty much sow as much discourse as possible and then collect all the relics to summon the gods back to Earth and see how shitty it is. Whether this is out of spite to kind of like, oh, look at your creation, they're just at each other's throats. You guys are useless. You guys created something horrible. You guys have no sense of balance or whatever, basically, or look how easily I corrupted all these people, things that you created. Basically just like a big, huge middle finger to the gods. Or she's hoping that, I don't know if this is like deep down or what she actually wants. She hopes that by bringing the gods back and them seeing how horrible everything is, that they would finally release her from life. She wants to die. She just wants all this to be freaking over. Man, the whole episode was just a mind blow. So many questions got answered. So many questions became apparent. We have all this backstory, and it kind of just boils down to, was this Osmond's fault? No, it wasn't Osmond's fault. This all began with life passing on into death, and Salem just could not let that go. She was, light and darkness explain themselves. She was always demanding of things from the gods. She is selfish. It was tragic what happened to her, and if you can find a way to, to fix it, you'll do anything. But at the same time, this was her own doing. She doomed humanity twice over. The first, when she became immortal and tried to rise up against the gods, and again now, we're seeking its destruction once again. So do I blame Ozpin? No. Do I blame Salem? Yeah. Do I think that she deserves it? Well, yes and no. I understand that she loved Ozma. Like that's what it boils down to. I'm sure there's some people that are in love that would do crazy things like rise up against the gods for it. It was just her hubris and her selfishness that said, well, I bet we could take them. I bet we could take on these all-powerful beings that literally gave us life, gave us magic, can destroy anything or make anything live forever. I'm sure that'll go out well. So she just didn't think, she didn't appreciate life and death. Yeah, I feel sorry for her, but this is ultimately her fault. So now we are just waiting for the fallout of Jin's story to the rest of Team RWBY, and how are they going to react? I honestly think that Yang might be the most affected because she has been questioning Ozpin pretty much this entire time, doubting it, kind of like falling in Raven's footsteps, kind of just questioning everything he does. And it's not without reason. However, I don't think she was prepared for this kind of answer. I mean, all this is true because Jin told it and she can't lie, which she had no reason to, and I imagine she can't. And this is just a tragic story from the point of Oz. You gotta feel sorry for the guy. So I think she'll let off a little bit. Before, it was like she pretty much questioned everything because she didn't know what to expect and was a little leery of what Raven told her. But now it's like, yeah, this happened, he's involved, but it's really, he couldn't have prevented this from happening. Maybe when he came back, but at that point, Salem had already fallen into the pools of Grimm, and she was probably going to do this anyway. This whole episode is just a mindfuck, and just recounting events pretty much has drained me. I'm going to take a break, edit this video, put it out on Saturday, and we'll just have to see what happens. So until then, this is the 84th Wolf, and I'll see you guys next time.